Old Yeller, 1957 release, directed by Robert Stevenson, starring Dorothy McGuire, Fess Parker, Tommy Kirk, and Old Yeller, who's the dog in the film, was played by Spike. The plot summary is: a teenage boy grows to love a stray yellow dog while helping his mother and younger brother run their Texas homestead while their father's away on a cattle drive. First thought to be a good-for-nothing mutt, Old Yeller is soon beloved by all. So this movie is a classic Disney film. Well, there's a lot of Disney movies on our list, actually, combined, that I just realized as I said that. Classic Disney film from the late 50s. And, it's a movie that I'd seen as a kid a couple times. It wasn't like on heavy rotation, but it definitely left a lasting impression on me. Definitely before I had a dog, I saw this film. What I think what this does so well is really show how, much like you were saying with Marley and Me, how is in this entire dog's life. In this movie, it is not the entire life, but it does contain, a dog coming into a family, affecting the family, and dying at the end. And I think that is really what, as a kid, you really see owning a pet, having a pet, being around a dog. It's teaching you those life lessons of growing up, and teaching you about how to love, teaching you about how to care for things, both the animal, but then also other humans, but also teaches you about loss. And I think what this movie does through the main character of this kid is he becomes an adult through this film, through the interactions he's having with Old Yeller and the other people that he's meeting. So it definitely was a movie, as I see this as a kid, I was like, I really want a dog. Like, it's just something that feels like an important part of like life and going through life, is having a pet, and especially a dog. So in this film, the family living out on a farm, and the dad has to leave. I can't remember, it was like some cattle drive, or have to go into town for a couple weeks. And it's just left now with the wife and then the couple kids. And there's sort of a kid who's maybe like 12, 13, who now then has to step into that father role. He has to be the protector. He has to lead the farm. He's like the man on the farm. And in the beginning, he sees the dog as a pest, who, much like Beethoven, the dog just sort of shows up in their life, which is interesting. I think that's something that is in a lot of these movies, actually, where the dogs just kind of appear. And maybe that's just because you were saying you and your sister had dreamed of that. I think as kids, you dream like, what if a dog just showed up? Like, this is so cool. And this movie is just another example of that, where Old Yeller just kind of comes in and teaches this kid, again, a lot of those lessons that I mentioned around how to provide. Like, the dog is working on the farm. He then has to work on the farm. You even find out at one point that the dog has an owner, and the owner comes and is like, hey, look, I want my dog back. Through that conversation with this guy, who, once he realizes the kids love the dog, he's like, obviously I'm not going to take the dog, but here's a chance for a life lesson. And he trades, a hot meal in the farmhouse for the dog. So the kid's actually learning about, the value of money. It's like a teaching moment for this kid. And I think that's really what this movie does so well, and shows that. At the end of the movie, which is also a famous dog dying at the end of the movie, the dog gets bitten and is rabid, and the dog has to be put down, and the dad is still gone. So, the mom said, okay, I'll do it. I'll kill the dog. But the kid's like, no, I want to do it. And this is not only sort of he's killing this dog because it's what's best for the dog. The dog's obviously sick. But also it is that he's now the protector. Like, the dog is a threat now to the family unit, and he has to come in and be the man and be the protector, and then actually be the one to kill the dog, which is really sad. I mean, I cried as a kid at that. I cried when I rewatched it now when the dog dies, because it's sad. Like, it's not only is the dog passing away, but you see the dog as someone who was a dog who was really nice, and now he's rabid, and it's just a very off-putting thing. And I think that dog death scene too is very important as a kid, just understanding that will happen. Like, people live longer than dogs. Like, there will be that part that'll come when the dog has to leave. And there's even a line in the movie that I thought really kind of sums up that as a life lesson, is like, don't waste the good parts of life by being scared of the bad parts. Like, when you get a dog, that the dog will pass away at some point, and that'll be very hard. But the dog brings so much joy and love into your life and teaches you so many things and makes you into a better person. Like, that's just part of accepting that journey, that there will be bad parts. At some point, you will have to say goodbye, which is hard to think about, but that's there. But it's not like you'd rather not the dog be in your life at all. Like, you're just thankful for that dog being there, because you know about those good parts. So Hadn't seen this movie in a really long time. It wasn't like a Beethoven 101 Dalmatians where I was like remembering scenes. It was almost kind of like watching it for the first time. I remember the emotions that I felt and some of the plot points, but it was interesting watching this film again as an adult. Still definitely affected me. Cried when Old Yeller gets killed. But I was able to pick up on a lot of these themes of like masculinity and man being a man. It's also a Western. So there's a lot of like, themes about American mythology and the yeoman farmer and all these things. So I picked up a lot of that stuff watching it again. And the animal acting is crazy. Like, unlike White Fang, they don't have a no animals were harmed. And there are some incredibly like questionable scenes of the dogs fighting other animals. And I'm like, what is like, hopefully this is fine. That, definitely as a kid, I didn't think about, but yeah, classic. I know it's kind of cheesy, even putting this on the list, just because of, how this movie is in the culture, but it did really affect me as a child when I watched it, and rewatching all those lessons, I think, are the key lessons of, dog ownership, that I felt now having a dog. So yeah, Old Yeller, a cheesy choice, but I put it on there nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, not more cheesy than Marley and Me, for sure.
I don't know. They're both of those movies. I think that's like the modern Marley and Me is sort of like the modern Old Yeller. Like, everyone's seen it and thinks that's like the dog movie of like the modern audience, and maybe you're replacing Old Yeller in a way because it does have that arc of there's a sad scene where you have to say goodbye to the dog. So yeah, Marley and Me is kind of like the modern Old Yeller, perhaps. Anyway.
Yeah, in some ways, yeah. But I think I see now why you felt the way you felt about Marley and Me, because I never watched Old Yeller, and I just watched it for the first time in preparation for this.
Interesting. Okay.
It is sort of, yeah, if I were to tell the Marley and Me story in a more conventional way and what I would expect the story arc to be, it would be a Old Yeller kind of movie. So I see that. I think it's that traditional structure of the movie is done very well by this movie, and that's sort of what it's going for, as opposed to, I think, Marley and Me. I don't want to give this much credit to the director and the makers of Marley and Me. I don't know if they were intentionally trying to kind of subvert that. Who knows?
Right. Yeah.
Maybe they were making an Old Yeller movie and just failed at it terribly, or they just intentionally did something different. And to me, it lands a little bit differently and still in a positive way. But yeah, it was fun to watch Old Yeller. All those themes, like you said, of masculinity and the Western and mythology and such, like that was pretty powerful to see. Again, shot very beautifully. Performances are very good by all the children and such. The boy killing the dog, like I couldn't watch that. That was too much for me. And yeah, I guess you can sort of say it's a different time and what have you, but I just kept thinking, like, in no way would any parent let a child do that, no matter what lesson you're trying to learn or grow up and what have you. But again, slightly different time, man of the house, even though you're much younger than the mother, but the mother has a certain status in the household.
That's correct. Yeah. No,
so I don't know. If I had watched this as a kid, it would have stayed with me in a different way. But watching it now for the first time, that was very hard for me to swallow.
Yeah.
Even though I know it's representing a different time.
So you did you know about this? Was this a movie you knew about growing up, or did it not ever kind of make it? So okay, interesting. So did you know about the ending just in pop culture? Oh, okay. So that never. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's just like a famous sort of like sad moment in a movie when Old Yeller gets killed. Did you know that was coming?
I could sense it.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it sort of became pretty clear that this is like one of those arc movies that the dog is, going to be a part of your life for a while, and at some point the dog has to go.
Yeah, and I guess they do drop a lot of hints about the rabies throughout the film too, about like being there, and I'm like, oh, interesting. Like, again, as a kid, it just sort of that stuff washes over you so much, and now I can sort of see the seeds of the plot. That's I mean, I guess that scene still, as an adult for the first time seeing it, seems like it left such an impression you couldn't watch get to it.
Yeah, it was horrifying. And the other thing I would say is that one of the few dog movies that I've seen, this is just maybe my own personal preference, but the dog is not movie cute.
Right,
You know?
right.
And they say that up front in the movie that, a lot of people call the dog ugly or what have you. And I was sort of happy to see that this dog is kind of a weird looking dog with like weird ears, and you fall in love with the dog through the dog's actions and what the dog means to the family and the relationship that the dog builds with the family, not just purely on the way the dog looks. And I will agree, like, I think half of Marley and me's winning over, at least on me, from when I first saw it, was because Marley is so cute. Like,
right.
You ignore so much of, the holes everywhere else because the dog is so adorable. So I thought that was interesting. Like, they could have cast like a, movie pretty dog, but they didn't, which is good.
I never thought about that. It's not a Benji of like this cute little dog. But thinking actually back then, I'm not an expert on dog movie history, but I do wonder if, like, because Rin Tin Tin was popular back then, he was not like just a grown-up German Shepherd. Like, maybe that thing at some point there was a turning point of like, oh, we got to go like super cute with all the dogs, and then every dog movie it's like the dog's got to be cute and adorable, and that's what sort of sells it. But you're right, like Old Yeller is just, I can't remember what dog breed he is. He was a breed I looked it up after I saw the filming, and I'm like, I've never even heard of this breed of dog, but it definitely does match sort of the Old West. Like, if all of a sudden Benji walked up and it's like, okay, this is very unrealistic.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.